Good morning. We'll try to follow up on some of Marty's discussion here. I think there is some relevance in the forecast, at least in one direction here that we can talk about. The past week, though, looking backwards here, we had some ups and downs in temperature. We had a very, very warm late week and weekend, and we've also had recently a couple of cooler than normal days, especially across the northern part of the state. Actually, portions of upper Michigan and the northern lower have not gotten out of the 60s or more than the 60s here for the last few days, and that's a change of pace because much of the growing season, of course, has been warmer than normal. Perhaps more importantly for many, we did get some meaningful precipitation, especially across northern parts of the state, and that's also been a trend. We've had heavier rainfall there. The rainfall totals here for the week, this is ending on the 22nd, and there's a little bit of scattered activity yesterday that was not included in here, but by and large, 2 inches or more across northern lower and across eastern half of the upper peninsula, and less as you go south, but for some southern sections, it was the most significant rain that they've observed here in a couple of weeks. So that was very, very helpful, and we had more widespread rain last week than we've had because, again, during most of the growing season, it's been quite scattered. Along that line, we still do have issues with dryness across certain sections of the Midwest. The precipitation helped last week, but I would note here that the Drought Monitor, which is on the right hand, this is still the latest one. There'll be a new issuance of that here today. But as of last week, Michigan, the D0 or abnormally dry category expanded from about 18% of the state the previous week to more than 38% last week. And that is a significant increase, and you can see much of that was over central and southern portions of lower Michigan. We actually lost some of the D0 up in the western upper peninsula where we've been earlier due to some of that heavy rain that you saw. But needless to say, while we did have rainfall, there's still some problems with dryness, and it has expanded in some areas of the Corn Belt to our south and to our west. So dryness has not gone away. It's still there, but a little bit at bay. In our forecast here, we're looking at the cold front that went through last night has cleared the state. It's now off to our south and east, and it's going to be replaced by high pressure, which should lead to a couple of mostly dry days. There is a weak upper air disturbance that's moving across the region, and you can see that depicted here on the surface map. This dashed line here is a little surface trough. We could see an isolated shower with that, mainly across lower Michigan. But that is going to be by really, really few and far between. Most areas should remain dry and mostly sunny here today as that high pressure moves in. And with relatively seasonable temperatures. It will be a little bit warmer in the far northern part of the state than it has been. They should be up into the 70s for highs, and we should see low 80s across the south. So very, very close to what climatology says or where we should be here for this time of the year. So into tomorrow, you can see the high pressure centered right over Michigan. It's a beautiful day statewide, dry conditions, mostly sunny skies, but it will be a few degrees warmer tomorrow, and actually noticeably warmer. The next weather system of notice here, you can see way off to our west with a storm track across southern Canada right along the U.S. border. That's the next weather system to basically impact us, and that'll be this weekend. One other object of note here, and it will come into even our discussion of the medium range, but down here in the Gulf of Mexico, we have had, the Northwest Atlantic has become active again in terms of tropical cyclone or hurricane activity. We do have one, actually a strong tropical storm way out. It's still out in the open Atlantic right now. That likely will become a hurricane, and that is moving west-northwestward towards ultimately the Caribbean and maybe the Gulf of Mexico. But closer than that, we've had another system develop here over the last couple of days, and it is now a tropical depression. If it continues to develop, and it is expected to here over the next day or two, it would become Tropical Storm Hannah. And right now, the progs and the upper air flow would suggest that will affect the northwestern Gulf. And we usually don't talk about that too much. It's a long way away, but it's beginning to look like this will have an influence on our forecast maybe for the medium range, and then I'll get to that here in just a second. It definitely is going to lead to probably a great deal of rain. This is not thought to be anything dangerous in terms of high winds or anything like that, but it will lead to probably a great deal of rain along the Gulf Coast and then into Texas, and possibly signal a more active, season down along the Gulf with more frequent passages of these tropical storms and tropical cyclones. By Saturday morning, back to the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes here, you can see the high pressure starting to drift off to the east, and we do have that next weather system approaching with the chance for showers and thunderstorms as early as probably Saturday evening across the western and central Upper Peninsula. And the greatest chances with this is the weather system goes to probably on Sunday across the northern part of the state, shifting southward to Monday, I think, across the central and southern lower peninsula. The other big message here, besides the next chance for significant precipitation, is it is going to be significantly warmer and more humid this upcoming weekend. We will see, as I mentioned, warming on tomorrow, on Friday with fair conditions, but it will become warmer and more humid, with high temperatures up nearing the 90-degree mark once again. Just as importantly, like we saw last weekend, our dew point temperatures will be increasing up to the upper 60s to low 70s. So it's going to be really, really muggy again this upcoming weekend. That will probably continue through at least Sunday in the north and Monday in the south before that weather system clears off. So right now it's looking for most areas. The next best chance for significant rainfall is probably not going to be until Sunday north and then Monday in the south. And overall, it's setting the stage for a drier than normal week with what had looked like maybe an active week is now really done an about face. And our forecast totals here through next Thursday morning from less than 1/4 of an inch over central portions of lower Michigan to a 1/2 inch or better in the far north. So once again, the pattern that we've seen here, there's more precipitation forecast for the northern part of the state than south. And again, over the last couple of days, the forecasts have really tuned down the chances for precip, and that may have relevance again to some of what Marty's talked about, especially as we look at the medium range forecast guidance. Oh, before I get to that, potential evapotranspiration rates. Generally here for the weekly totals between 1.2 and 1.4 inches. That translates to somewhere on the order of about 1/1600 to 2/10. That's pretty close to the climatological normal, maybe a little bit above, but not as high as what we saw or experienced here earlier in the season. So water demand will be fairly high, but near seasonal rates here for the upcoming several days. And I just talked about the medium range forecast guidance, and there have been significant changes in this. Most of these medium range outlooks, if you follow these during the work week, they're issued each day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon by the Climate Prediction Center. We're calling for warmer than normal mean temperatures, and the vast majority of them also at least normal, if not above normal precipitation. And we had seen that theme, that signal here repeatedly for much of the last couple weeks. But there have been some changes, and I think that tropical activity in the Northwest Atlantic is playing a role here. If you look at the upper air forecast, we still have this ridge forecast for much of North America, but the big difference is, note where the axis is out here further west than it has been over the last couple of weeks, and that will have a fairly significant influence potentially on precipitation. But if you look at our temperature forecast, you can see normal to above normal mean temperatures still forecast, but there's a large area here to our south and to our southwest where cooler than normal temperatures are forecast, and that is residual remnants or moisture from, what could be, again, Tropical Storm Hannah, ultimately here making landfall if it does by the end of the week or the weekend, and then maybe more storms to follow. So that is now playing a role in our medium range. You can see that there's also above normal, not surprisingly, precipitation forecast or predicted here for much of the southern half of the lower. But Michigan notably has been moved into a drier than normal forecast. And again, this also holds true for the 8 to 14 day outlook. So the last few days of July into that first several days of August right now looking warm and maybe drier than normal. And that's a little bit, especially the drier than normal, is a change from previous outlooks. The new long lead outlook for the month of August and for the August through October 3-month outlook, those are here. Were just issued last week. There's the new versions. The August outlook is on top, and then the August through October on the bottom. These are very, very consistent with what we have seen in previous issuances. Both of these call for above normal, warmer than normal weather. That's a continuation of where we've been for a lot of the season. And the EC, or equal chances of below, near, and above normal precipitation for both the August and the August through October period. So one take home here, though, and in contrast to last year where we had so many delays in our spring and there was a great deal of concern about our annual crops reaching maturity before killing freeze, given where we've been so far this year and where our degree day totals are still above normal, it's very, very likely that those surpluses of degree days we have now will be there at the end of the season. And so, again, the issues with reaching maturity, nowhere into the same, very, very dissimilar situation from last year. Very, very likely to have a full season, and for some crops, actually, maybe even a benefit to have a little bit warmer or longer than normal season. But right now, all the outlooks are pointing in that direction. So summarizing here, more summer-like weather coming here, especially for the weekend, more heat and humidity. Best chance for precipitation for most of the state on Sunday in the north and on Monday in the south, but still below normal and less frequent precipitation this week relative to the climatology. Cooler, a little bit cooler, more seasonable and drier for a lot of the work week. Next week is where we're headed, but the medium range forecast guidance still all consistent, suggesting a continuation of warmer than normal temperatures, and then if we go into all the way actually into the early fall. Our speaker next week with a timely topic or subject matter, Dr. Dean Boss is going to be speaking with us, looking at cover crop options following wheat, and of course a lot of wheat coming out right now, so it's a very timely one. So please join us again next Thursday morning. And with that, I'll wrap up here and turn it back to you, Eric.
All right, great. Thank you, Jeff.
Eric, there was one question for Jeff on his suggestion for weather apps. And we had one of the participants said WeatherBug is good, but I guess I'd like to hear your take on that too, Jeff.
There are, and this is it depends on you. There are a whole bunch of options on this. I don't personally have WeatherBug, but I know people who do it. My wife has it. But a couple of thoughts. I know we have one here locally in the Lansing area, WLNS. The TV station has a very, very nice one that it's available free. And I would also put out a prop for the EnviroWeather, and it's because we're changing, and there's going to be a much more, we have mobile format now, and there are features on the EnviroWeather that really nobody else has because we have our Mesonet, and that one is almost released within the next couple of weeks. And I'll probably, when we do release that, I'll actually make a point of having that here on our weather update. But I would also say that's one you want to at least have as an option available, as well as, and it has more data oriented than forecast oriented, which is most of the others do.
Thank you. Thanks for catching that. I forgot I saw that. So somebody had mentioned WeatherBug in there. I like using Weather Underground. For what I've seen anyway, that seems to be pretty good when you're looking at what's coming up in the next 3 to 5 days. And then if I'm looking for what's going on today, AccuWeather seems to be more accurate than the others. For those of us who like weather, all these different apps, just allow us to be obsessed with weather. And so how many of you out there, if you're standing outside and you want to know if it's going to rain, you're going to check your phone before you actually just look up in the sky. I do that. So if anyone has any other ideas for apps that you like, feel free to put those in the chat box as well. And then Bruce has a question for Jeff. Southern Lake Michigan has really chewed up the storms in southwest Michigan. Will the moisture in the soil in the southwest, if the tropics get active, help here with August rainfall?
That's a tough one. Some years it probably does make a difference, but by and large, the significant rain that we get, the rain that really makes the yields and earns everyone money, that's moisture imported from the south, from the Gulf of Mexico. And so yes, there is some local contribution, but it's not as significant as what we get brought up. So that's what we have to pay attention to, or the most important thing. In places like your point though is a good one. And in places like the Great Plains, if you move west and south from Michigan, that local moisture is a very important contribution to what they get as precipitation. They get less of it in general in their climate. But as you move to the Great Lakes region, again, the contribution, local soil moisture, local transpiration from crops is generally quite a bit less than what we get imported from other places. So it could, but what really matters is what's coming from the south.